I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thank you everyone for attending on this beautiful evening outside. I don't know how warm it is out in your areas, but out here in the municipality office, it's about 25 degrees, a very light wind, and birds are chirping. It's a beautiful day. With that said, we'll move on. Item number 2, you all have the agenda in front of you. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated?
John?
Mr. Chairman, I have one addition.
Yes, go ahead, Citizen Rep Simpson.
It would be a discussion on the creation of an inventory of possible properties that may be appropriate for common citizen use across the municipality. I just kind of been out and about, as we all have on these summer evenings, and perhaps there's some properties that might be available now or in the future that might be considered useful in our green space or creating parks or access to waterways. So I'd like a discussion on that.
Is there any objections by any other council or committee members or staff? Hearing none, I guess we'll add that under item number 6. Patty Simpson, what did you say it was again? Inventory of property?
I would say the creation of an inventory of properties that may be present or future for, I would say, common citizen use across the municipality.
Inventory properties for citizen use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just name it inventory of properties for citizen use, and then you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other additions? I see Councillor Gerard LeBlanc, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Gerard.
Warner Camo had an email there. He wanted somebody to, I can't get the email. I don't know how to get the email here.
Yes, Councillor Patty Durkee was going to bring that up when we started that discussion.
Okay, good. Thank you, Patty.
I also have his email, and it certainly won't be left out in a discussion on that subject.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda circulated? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Yeah, I just want to add that the questions that were forwarded by Warner Camo are in the chat, so we can address them when the time comes.
All right, thank you very much for that. All right, so there's one addition to the agenda item under other items, so we're going to call it 6.1, inventory of properties for citizens. So since there's no more additions to the agenda, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Lauren Cushing. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Item 3.1, PAC meeting minutes from February 18th, 2020. You all have that in your packages. Is there any error or omissions in the meeting minutes as circulated? Hearing none, if you're all comfortable with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the PAC meeting minutes from February 18th, 2020.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Citizen Rep Patty Simpson. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushing. Motion on the floor to approve the PAC meeting minutes from February 18th, 2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item 3.2, PAC public participation session February 18th, 2020. You all have those meeting minutes in your package. Is there any errors or omissions? Sorry, I said that wrong. Errors or omissions. A little bit tongue-tied today. Hearing none, a motion to approve the public participation session February 18th, 2020 would be in order. Moved by Councillor Patty Durkee. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Is there any items arising from the business minutes? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5, items for discussion or approval. Item 5.1, report private road maintenance bylaw. I'm assuming Mr. Morris Lloyd will be speaking on that. So Morris and or any other staff member, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. You all have a copy of the report that has been filed. This came about right at this particular point in time because of an email from the Golden Forest Development. They have their own homeowners association. And they asked if it was possible to explore the option of adding a road maintenance fee to our property taxes. This also came up during the public consultation on the subdivision review. One of the issues that came up was that there was no vehicle for getting people together to pull the money for road maintenance, and sometimes it was done voluntarily and sometimes not. In the draft of the subdivision bylaw, we put in a requirement, the council put in a requirement that the developer had to form a homeowners association that was mandatory after he sold the first 5 lots. And then when half of the lots were sold, the operation of the association was turned over completely to the homeowners association along with the deed to the road. And that was an attempt to see if there could be some means of vehicle formed whereby the homeowners could get together. They would then own the road and then go forward with maintenance. But the experience in Kings County has been that they've had to take this one step further and develop a bylaw that allowed for the imposition of a tax, if you like, and the funds to be raised to be turned over to a homeowners association. So the feeling was that given all of this background, perhaps it was time to develop a bylaw, a draft bylaw, and put it before you as the Planning Advisory Committee, and with your agreement that it be recommended to council for consideration by council. When we started this, we put down a few kind of principles, I guess, if you like, and used those as the basis for developing the bylaw, and then looked around to see where there were bylaws in place. And it's the Kings County bylaw that seems to be the one that follows along with these principles. And they are that the role of the municipality here is an enabler to collect the funds and transfer them to the Property Owners Association. The municipality would collect an admin fee of 4% for doing that. But other than the admin fee, which would include advertising and annual amendment, I can get to that, there's no financial impact on the municipality's operating budget. Presumably the admin fee would cover the cost of administration. The municipality does not provide any other services or technical support, such as engineering advice or anything like that. And the way that Kings County run it is that every year they pass the bylaw again, if you like, with changes to the appendices. And in the appendices is the program for the municipalities that are participating. The advantage of this is that it shows transparency every year. It's put out there every year. The applicants can change their requirements depending on their financial situation and demand. And it's very, very transparent to the public. And if somebody has participated one year and they don't want to participate the next year, they simply don't submit. So it's not a matter of chasing them around. All the action is left with the applicant. And the applicant here would be an association formed under the Societies Act. Golden Forest people already have an association formed. They've had it for some time. The association delineates the area that's to be impacted. That is, they take a map and they outline the area that would be covered by the request for funds. They prepare an implementation plan and a budget. As I say, they do this every year, much like council prepares its budget every year. The recommendation is that it be an area rate, but a flat rate, that there be perhaps a different rate for a year-round home compared to a seasonal home or compared to a vacant lot. And those rates are approved at a meeting of the property owners. The association holds a meeting of the property owners every year, annually, and 2/3 of the property owners under this proposal would have to approve the budget and the submission and the rates. In Kings County, by the way, that's 51%. But I put forward 2/3 because that's also the number that's used in your local improvement bylaw. If it's a municipal road and somebody applied, say, to have it paved or something like that. So that consistency is there. The association hires the contractors to implement the plan. And as I say, they repeat the process every year, unless they decide not to participate, in which case they just drop out. Still required to submit the financial statement for the previous year. So now I've attached some information I got from Kings County just for your information. Appendix A is a typical budget. There's 2 of them there, but the first one is Road Association number 1. You can see their revenue, the 78 property owners, must all be the same, or they've agreed to all pay the same, $250. The admin fee comes off, and then there's the actual expenditures under the budget. And you can see that grading, graveling, all those upgraded gravel, snow removal in the winter. This is a year-round thing, looking at the whole issue of public safety and access. Sanding may be required in some areas, particularly near wells, and an administration fee that they put in there, which is probably the renewal of the association and all of that. Giving you another budget in a different format, Kings County number 2, they had some money left over from the year before. They collect a certain amount of annual fees, and the total income is $18,800 and change. And you can see their expenditures there, including the transfer to the municipality of Kings and snow removal in the winter. At the end of each year, there's a requirement that each association submit a statement of revenue and expenditures. And I've given you a typical one here. This is for the 78 property owners of $200. And there must have been a few that didn't pay up that year, because you multiply 78 to 200, you get a little more than 15.2. Less the admin fee, and on goes the bank charges, administration, renewal, stocks. Plowing, sanding, and a contract, I don't know what that's for. And you can see they went a little over budget, but they had a bank balance from the previous year, and they added in their income, and they still have a bank balance going into 2020. So this is typical of the information that would come in from an association, and it's their job to do all of that. I might say this is quite similar to what you would see if you were running a condo corporation. You would have a board of directors that develop the budget and implement it and then report back to their members. In that case, they also file it with the register of condominiums, but you don't have that for subdivision. So this is typical of the amendment that would win for each association for a year at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, and then this is advertised, and the budget, the bylaw is literally readopted with this amendment, all these in the Appendix A. And this is just one association I picked, which is New Haven. that the municipality, it says in this, that the municipality will transfer money to the New Haven Road Association as requested by the residents at a public meeting. And the uniform charge for this year, they have permanent residents 500, seasonal residents 250, and they get last 50. That would vary depending on the association, and it's entirely up to them to make that decision and bring it to council. We've also given you a draft bylaw, which is based quite a bit, mostly, I would say 80 or 90% on the King's bylaw, but there are some minor amendments there. We made sure that they include snow plowing at the beginning and all of that stuff. There are definitions which are fairly standard. There's the authority for doing this, which is Section 81 of the Municipal Act, and then an application and what must be in that application. They have to prove they're a society in good being, define the area, include a budget, all the things that I mentioned before. They have to hold a public meeting prior to the submission, and they include all the owners who are incorporated, which may be subject to the maintenance charge. That's how in the area they've defined. Oh, that's reading this off the screen and I clicked the wrong button. Then they get this, how they notify the meeting and so forth. That's been a little tricky this year, but they've gone to zoning and saying what we're doing here. Know how they notify the owners. The meeting is conducted by the applicant, which is the association. And they make a presentation and then they get agreement, and they must provide evidence that they've had a duly constituted meeting and the 2/3 approval is there. It's an annual application, so it's open just like you do your budget every year. They have to do their budget every year. The council does its budget every year. The municipality its involvement is the administration of the charge. No engineering advice, but very clear. The CIO or designated is authorized to execute an agreement entered into with an applicant for the maintenance of private roads. I have a copy of the Kings County agreement, but I felt the municipality would want to develop its own agreement. That would be part of the operation. And payment is only made to the association. And then it just goes on, that every owner will pay, all charges are due and payable, and they are assessed. And if you don't pay, there's a lien on your property, and interest thereon shall be first lien on the property, and this is interest is charged in accordance with the policy of the municipality. And then the Schedule A, which is each one of the associations will have a piece under that outlining what their charges are for the year and everything. That is then all advertised and is through a hearing, just like any bylaw. So it's very open and very transparent as to what's going on. I think that pretty much covers it. My recommendation was that you recommend to council that they adopt the proposed private road maintenance charge bylaw, but that of course is your decision. I missed anything, Victoria? She here?
No, she's there.
Yep, I'm here. I don't think so. That was a very, that was
Anyway,
a very thorough review.
Open for questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I see Councillor Patty Durkee, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. This was a question from Warner Camo, who's a PAC member, and actually I am wondering the same thing. So essentially the question is that the bylaw seems to be no strength if there was no payment. So what happens if you have your group of homeowners and you have 3 or 4 people, however big this is, who say, I'm not paying for road maintenance. So what Warner says, also say taxes are 2,000 plus 200 road maintenance and only the 2,000 is paid. Does the municipality have to forward the road maintenance money on and hope for collection? So I guess that, yeah, what if that person continues non-payment? Or if they own one or more pieces of property in that subdivision, do they have to pay for both of their pieces of property?
If they own more than one property, they would pay for both properties, yes. If there's joint owners in a property, then there's only one charge for property. The charge is on a property basis. If they don't pay, and Greg, you jump in on this because we've had a couple of discussions on this, and Victoria, of course, anytime, but we've talked about it too. If they don't pay, it's a lien against their property, and it's a first priority lien. And they are charged interest in accordance with the municipality's policy, which is 1.5% a month at the moment, unless council changes that. I'm not clear on whether eventually the property could be put up for tax sale or not. So,
yeah, I think that's something that we need clarity on. The question is, how long do we allow it to go unpaid? So if, you know, year one goes by, doesn't get paid, year two, year three, year four, it accumulates then. Is there, how long does that happen before we do something?
I think Greg had his hand up there.
Yeah.
So it does become a lien on the property and is treated the same as any other taxes or amounts payable. So it would pretty much follow the tax sale procedures. Typically after 2 years, you're in arrears, you are eligible for tax sale. So, you know, that is probably a fairly decent hammer. Liens are probably most things that most people don't want to have on their properties, the risk of losing them. But I think there's a couple other solutions you could also put in too, if there's a concern about risk to the municipality and enforceability. We could, applications are required to be submitted every year if you want to continue with your maintenance program. We could hold processing of applications until all proceeds are received from the previous year. That's one solution that would help entice people to ante up and settle accounts. And the other thing I was thinking of that we could do to mitigate risk, because there is some exposure to the municipality, as Warner suggests, about sending out a bill and hoping to collect, and in the interim us paying the money to the association. And we could mitigate the risk, even though I don't think it would be substantial. We could mitigate it by not sending money to the association until something like 80% of the proceeds have been received, for example. So those things would help mitigate risk and help incent them to abide by their own association's rules. But ultimately the lien, it's enforceable the same as any other taxes, which means it can go to tax sale if it's in arrears for over 2 years.
Thank you very much.
All right, before I open the floor to any more questions, there was one question that come through here from Aaliyah Dion, and it states, if property owners own multiple lots, do they receive more than one vote? Property owners own more than one lot. Is it permitted to only charge one maintenance fee? That was the question that was put forward.
Well, I guess you could structure the bylaw to show that, but the intent here is that it would be related to properties, and you know they would normally have 2 votes, for example, at a meeting and all of that. But I think we could structure it so that you could do that. You know, on the other hand, if you have a property that's owned by 2 or 3 people, then again, you'd only have 1 charge per property. The way it's written now, each property would have to pay it.
All right, I got another question for you, Morris, and it's regards to our council when we had a policy and bylaw committee regular meetings, and I please Councillor Dirk Lee correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we go through this once and we just council at the time decided to table it?
Yeah, sure did. In 2016, I think, about 4 years ago. Not this particular bylaw, by the way, but a differently written bylaw, which was nothing wrong with it. But I really, in reading that and in reading the Kings County bylaw, and I'm looking at the experience that Kings County has had with this, because they've been doing this now for quite a few years. It seemed to me that the Kings County bylaw was fundamentally a better bylaw to handle this particular situation. In the draft bylaw you had 4 years ago, there were a number of instances where the municipality seemed to be getting into the business of the homeowners association. And that's something that I wanted to strictly avoid in putting a recommendation before you. And in talking to the people at Kings County who administer their bylaw, they were very adamant about that too, that, you know, this is an arm's length situation. It's the people in the development who have to get together, form their association, develop their budgets and their approach, submit it to council for approval, and sign an agreement in the end on behalf of the owners to implement it. And the role of the municipality here is simply that of the expediter to provide the vehicle that allows the funds to be collected and then turned over to the association. So you did try it 4 years ago. You talked about it. You required at that point 81% of the owners to agree, which is a pretty high percentage. I say Kings County is 51%. I'm suggesting 2/3 in this because it's consistent with what you do on your other bylaws. So that's that one.
All right. Another question that was brought up too, Morris, was in regards to say if someone owns one lot and they subdivide it.
Well, if you subdivide it off, then it becomes a separate lot. And if the bylaw requires that, you know, each lot pay the fee, then that fee would go with it, as would one vote for that separate lot. Because presumably if you're subdividing it, you're doing it for a purpose of turning it over to somebody else, or maybe just a family member, but it does become a separate lot and you're a separate owner under the bylaw.
Well, that said, Morris, it's happened before in the municipality district of Yarmouth, where someone subdivided a lot to get around our land use bylaws. It's in
From the time we adopt bylaws, there's always somebody trying to figure out a way to get around them, Mr. Chairman.
Well, see, that way there, someone could subdivide their lot. Say if their lot was big enough, they could subdivide it and they could have 3 votes and have no intention of selling it. That's what the point I'm trying to make.
Well, they could do it for that purpose, yes. But you know, you still require 2/3, 66 and 2/3% of the homeowners to agree before this could be submitted.
I know that, but hate to say it's happened before, and it may happen again. And I think it's going to be pretty airtight on that. And going back to the question again, more than one lot, does it get one vote? More than one vote? Well, we'll see. I'm still not quite sold on that process yet, to tell you the truth.
CAO's got their hand up.
Oh, sorry. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, CAO.
Hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think it's important to understand that the bylaw will be speaking about PID numbers, not individuals. So the terms of the bylaw will apply to the property identification numbers. So if somebody wants to have more vote at the homeowners association by creating more PIDs, there will be a financial responsibility that goes with that. So the rights and responsibilities are going to be equaled out. So to the questions that have been asked from the individuals who are observing, the questions around subdivided, not subdivided, future years, in any given year when the homeowners association has their annual meeting, the eligible voters are going to be based on the PIDs that are legally filed with the registry at that time. And so the votes and the fees that the HOA decides to levy will be in relationship with the PID numbers. It really doesn't matter how many owners there are per PID or how many people own how many PIDs. It's all about the PID. So if you think about the PID as being the individual for whom this bylaw is intended to benefit, right? It's intended to create access that's safe at a level that those homeowners agree is appropriate. And so it's based on the PIDs. So if you can think about it that way, that the PID is your lowest common denominator, and the terms of the bylaw apply to every PID, then it might help you understand about if there's consolidations of lots or if there's subdivisions of lots, if there's more than one owner, if there's one owner and more than one lot, kind of how that will work.
Is there any other questions, committee members? I know I've seen hands up. I see Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know if you could see me or not. I appreciate all the work that Morris has done over the last few years and helping us get through this very tangled process of private roads and whatnot. But what really brought me to a better understanding of things was a sample that Morris gave us of the King Counties Association and how each property member has to pay a certain fee and how it's broken out. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that any new development that happens, the developer is required to set up this homeowners association. Is that correct, Morris?
Yes, that's
number
correct.
One. Okay. So number two, you did mention about Golden Forest. So do they have a homeowners association now, or they had one at one time, I believe, but do they have one now again?
Yes, they do. Roger checked that out, and they do have a homeowners association, and it's active.
Yeah. Okay. So in saying that, will they be able to fix their road under that homeowners association, or is there going to be some type of tripping point there for them to do so?
Well, part of the reason that brought this forward at this time was the email from the Golden Forest Homeowners Association.
Yeah.
And they were finding, of course, that not everybody would participate in the maintaining and building the road and all of that. And the request was that could an additional tax be added that would allow them to maintain the road. I guess I would just like to say that in addition to looking at it from the point of view of the people living the homeowners association, there is a concern here about public safety in the winter or in the summer if you needed to get an emergency vehicle in and all of this. I'm not sure on some of those roads you're able to, and indeed I know of
well,
forget the name of it, where you simply the fire department said we're not going down that road, then there are other situations where there are existing roads. You've got a lot of private roads in your municipality, and during the consultation process, it certainly came up a lot that how can we don't have any means of maintaining our private roads. There are cases where people get together voluntarily and do a pretty good job of it. And in most of those cases, the two that I can think of, they have a homeowners association. But there's still some people who won't contribute. They simply say, I'm not going to pay for this. I'm just going to use the road that everybody else maintains. So there is that. And you're not going to impose this on anybody. It's only going to happen if they form an association and come forward to the municipality and ask that you set the charge, and there are conditions on doing that, like the 2/3 vote and all of that.
Yeah, I see.
I take your point, Mr. Chairman, that there's always somebody who will try to get around the bylaw, but I think there's a bigger purpose here, and in dealing with sort of all those private roads that you have, and providing a means for them to come forward, not for you to do it, but for them to come forward if there's some means that with a majority vote, a good majority vote, not just 51%, that there's a means there for them to do something. And
okay,
a lot of these summer homes, but just about every one of them now has 2 or 3 or 4 year-round homes on them. And I know Councillor Cushing is certainly very familiar with Green Rock Drive, and that's all year round. And if they organized themselves and came forward, it would provide them with an opportunity too. So I just put that forward, Mr. Chairman. I'm not here to sell this. I'm just here to provide you with the recommendation. Okay. It's your consideration, of course.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're telling me. I wasn't done with my questioning and my concerns, but I really appreciate your input and your explanation. I think it's going down. I think we're hitting down a very good road. And the place is going to be pretty bumpy, but I think we all agreed at one time or another, when all the so-called private roads came up to bear, when they had 3 or more PID numbers on them, they became classified as a private road. Whereas we all know in reality, some of these so-called private roads are not much more than an extended driveway, number one. Number two, and you mentioned about Green Rock Drive, which has been a thorn in my rear end since I became a councillor, because I told them I would do whatever I could to help them to get that road fixed. And I believe if we continue on excuse the pun, going down the road that we are, I think we're going to prevent any other development that has been neglected like Green Rock Drive has in the future, which is a good thing. In saying that, if the residents of Green Rock Drive decided to form a homeowners association, number one, they would be allowed to do so. That's my understanding. And number two, if they all agree to it, then okay, it would happen. But if they don't get the 2/3 majority of this, then the homeowners association would not be able to be formed, and they would be stuck with what they had over for many years. But I believe, and it was my understanding, that they were led down a path that that particular road would be fixed. And I'm not trying to push the blame on anybody else, because I was certainly under the same understanding when I first became a councillor. But through the hard work of yourself, Morris, and of our council, and trying to develop something to look for the future, I think we've done I think our council has been very supportive of you, and I think the bylaw that we're going to propose to our council to approve, I think it's a very good step in the right direction. Now, in saying that, also, I think I will contact the people of Green Rock Drive and just ask them if they're interested in doing so. And if that's the case, I will look for some direction how they can get this organized, sort of thing, right? But yeah, I certainly can appreciate what you've done, and I think we're, like I say, going down the road. And I'll end by saying that what we classified as private roads, I'm very disappointed in that, because I had mentioned that some of them are only extended driveways, and some of them you can't drive down. I was on one today, matter of fact, that the bushes were hitting the side of my truck, and it was there was barely one lane, but there was, I'm trying to think, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses on it. But all it is it's a one-way path. But anyway, thanks. I don't mean to tie up anymore, but I think you gave me some good information. I believe what you've done is a great job. Thank you.
If I could just make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
It takes 5 property owners to form an association under the Societies Act. Once the Property Owners Association is formed, it's not a requirement in this bylaw that 2/3 of the owners be members of that association. The association would call a meeting of all the property owners, and it's 2/3 of the property owners that are in the area that would decide one way or another. In your new bylaw, you can have up to 4 properties without it becoming labeled a private road. You can have them on a driveway. It's when you go to the 5th property that it becomes a private road. So all those numbers kind of interrelate there, but there is no requirement here that 2/3 of the property owners have to be members of the association. 5 property owners could form an association. Hopefully they would get everybody in there. But then they have to call a meeting of all the owners. They can't decide what the bylaw is going to, what the submission is going to be. That has to be done by a majority of the owners, a 2/3 majority of the owners. And that's the same with your new bylaw. The developer has to form the association when there's 5 properties sold. You have to have 5 owners to form the association. And then, of course, it goes on to say when 50% is there, you've solved the problem of ownership. I think it's important, too, that you don't have to get into who owns the road or not. This is the association getting together and saying it's up to them to decide that, yes, we can fix this road up, or who owns it doesn't become an issue with the municipality.
Okay, so wait a minute now. Am I under the understanding then that only 5 property owners could form an association, but if there's more than 5 property owners on it, they can't make the other owners, you know, now I'm getting a little confused here. Well, I thought we said they have 2/3.
Yeah, okay, let's get very clear on this. The association then has to call a meeting of all the property owners. They have to notify everybody. Okay. And then it's 2/3 of the people, of all those owners that make the decision.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Gerard LeBlanc and then Victoria Brooks.
Do we know how many private roads that are maintenance by a few or 3 or 4 more homeowners? Do we know how many there is in the area in the municipality?
We don't know. We don't know how many are there that where they're, you know, whether there's a group trying to maintain them or not. We did develop a list of private roads, which we ordered before, but we don't know about the maintenance.
Okay. Now, would this be a burden to the taxpayer? Taxpayers?
No, not the regular taxpayer, not at all. It's entirely a burden to the property owners in the particular development, who, you know, they prepare their submission and send it in. The money that's raised is taxed against them. 4% is taken off for the administration, and then money's transferred to them.
That's what I was getting at. What about the administration?
Well, that's what the 4% is for. I accept that the percentage that Kings County used, because they've been at this for quite a few years, and that's what they feel gives them the money that they need to cover the cost of the administration, the administration costs for the municipality. So that's paid for by the property owners too. There should not be any impact on the general taxpayer. And you're not forcing this on anybody. They have to come forward and ask you to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Victoria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to review some activity that's going on in the chat for the benefit of those who might be on Facebook Live or might not be able to see the chat window. So one of the attendees, a member of the public, said it wasn't clear if the charge area can change each year. And so it's my understanding that the geography defined as the homeowners association, defined by the homeowners association. So if the association grew geographically, then they would amend their bylaws to redefine that geography. And then when the members approve a budget and ask the municipality to levy their rate on their behalf and remit it back to them, then that would include those PIDs that are defined in the bylaws. Is that correct, Morris?
No. The homeowners association may only represent 5 of the property owners, but they call a meeting of all of the property owners in an area that they define. And then it is a requirement then that 2/3 of those property owners approve of the budget and the charges and all of that that's submitted to the municipality. It's not a requirement that all of those property owners be a member of the association.
Right, but no, but the geography that the association covers.
That's the first thing they do is define the area that they want to have covered in the bylaw. And then they identify the PID numbers and they call a meeting of everybody that's on that PID. But they may not all be members of the home.
How is the area?
That's just a legal vehicle for dealing with the municipality.
Right, but the question is, how does the geography grow or shrink? What's the mechanism? Our bylaw or the homeowners association's bylaws?
The homeowners association and their submission each year. They may in 1 year submit a certain area and then say, well, that didn't really work. And the next year they amend the area and then go through the process of getting their 2/3 approval of all the property owners. And then they go forward from there.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from any other committee members?
If I could, Mr. Chair, just aside from the technical conversation, I support the recommendation of our planner that this is a good thing for the municipality. We've had several conversations with residents on private roads, not just the 2 that were mentioned here this evening. And this vehicle provides a way to empower the residents who have the will to do something. And I feel like that with a growth-oriented approach to development, that this is a piece that will speak to roads that exist that might not have a lot of development on them now, but are in areas where development is something that investors want to do on their property.
So what is the wishes of the committee? Do they wish to move this forward, amend a few things?
Point out, Mr. Chairman, that if you do
we haven't
there is a requirement
Councillor
that you
Patty,
have
just message
public
that.
hearings and advertise it, like any bylaw.
I'm sorry, Morris, you would cut out.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we were just saying that this bylaw hasn't been for legal review.
Please repeat that. Okay, so what do we need here, I guess, from staff? Do we need this to go to legal review and then come back to the committee for possible amendments or passing it forward to council? Is that what happens here?
I believe that's what Victoria was recommending there before she cut out.
Okay, so I guess the best way to do this would be I would need a motion from this committee then to move this forward to have legal opinion put to it and then brought back to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting at our next scheduled time. Is that correct?
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion, John, to bring this to our council for.
No, it'd be legal.
For legal opinion, yes. Okay. Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All right. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to repeat the motion. Councillor Lauren Cushing made a motion to move this to legal for an opinion, correct?
That's correct.
All right. A motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. So a motion on the floor to move this draft policy to legal for their opinion and input and bring back to the next meeting. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously, I believe. Okay, moving on. Item 5.2, Municipal Planning Strategy Policy for Commercial Development District Plan Bylaw.
Okay, let me just pull mine up here so I can have a look at it. Okay, you want me to start this off, Victoria, or? This came about because council passed a commercial development district improvement bylaw, which was to become effective back in February. And when it was forwarded to the department for approval, the department responded by pointing out that you had to have, and I'll read the exact words from the act if I can get it here. A bylaw established in accordance with a municipal planning strategy, one or more commercial policy in your municipal planning strategy that supports the creation of a commercial development district. On further to say, a commercial development district, water facilities, and a water system. So those are the two requirements. So the minister's office has indicated that the municipality must have a policy in its municipal planning strategy that supports this application to create a commercial development district. And that's the document that, that you have in front of you. The beginning of that document is just some background that Part 6 of your municipal planning strategy talks about the Hebron Lakes and District. And that's straight out of your municipal plan. And it concludes with a policy of council to designate the Dayton, Milton Highlands portion of North Chicago and Brooklyn as Hebron and Lakes District. And that's in your municipal planning strategy. So the recommendation is that you add something to that introduction that says something like this. Council wishes to further encourage economic development in this area by designated as a commercial development district under the Municipal Government Act. This will permit the phasing in of an increase to the taxable assessment value of eligible commercial properties, leading to a more stable and competitive investment environment. That would then give you the introductory basis for adding a policy The second policy, 6.1.2, the policy is to establish a commercial development district within the Hebron and Lakes district in the area that is serviced by wastewater facilities and a water system. So that's tying it back into the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. I might say I believe I understand, in fact, I think I know that there were some commercial development districts improvement bylaws passed for municipalities without this requirement. I think it was simply an oversight in the government offices, provincial government offices, and all of a sudden they saw these two pieces in the Municipal Government Act and said, "Whoa, wait a minute now, we better." Started enforcing these in the act. So you kind of got caught in the change there. So you submitted you've got a policy in your municipal planning strategy that supports this, and that's the recommendation you have in front of you. And the reason for specifically saying wastewater facilities and the water system is that wording is straight out of the act. I think, if you, as a planner, I would say there are probably other situations where you would like to have this bylaw apply, whether or not municipal water and wastewater systems, but that would require an amendment to the act. And at the moment, the way your bylaw is written and everything, it would come in and comply with the act. Getting the act amended is another whole strategy, and would require support from other municipalities and so forth. I'm thinking of the whole business of repurposing buildings, for example, and that Mood Road building, Mr. Chairman, would probably be a building that would benefit from something moving in there that got a tax break to get it going. But it's not on a municipal water and sewer system, so you can't make it happen under the act as it now exists.
All right. Is there any questions for Morris or, excuse me, Victoria, or what is the wishes of the committee? Do you wish to move forward with the recommendation put forward to you, or if so, I need a motion to accept the recommendation, so it'll be moved to council.
Mr. Chair, is it okay if I address the committee?
Yes, absolutely.
I apologize that my video is turned off. It stabilizes my connection when I do that. So the Commercial Development District Improvement Bylaw cannot come into force and therefore cannot be used as a development tool by Municipal Council if we do not make this amendment to the municipal planning strategy.
I'm sorry, Victoria, we all didn't get that.
I think what Victoria was getting at, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Victoria, but if you want to make your bylaw that you've already passed activated, if you want to get it approved, then you require these changes in your municipal planning strategy to make that happen.
So do I have a motion to move this forward to council? So Councillor Durkee, do you, what would be the motion that you're making to accept the recommendation and move it forward to council?
Yes.
Right, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Citizen Rep Patty Simpson. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Please excuse me. I seem to have something caught in my throat. I just can't get rid of it. We'll move on to item number 6. This was requested to be added to the agenda item, and what I've written down here is inventory of properties for citizens. Citizen Rep Patty Simpson, you asked us to have this on the agenda, so I'll leave the floor open to you. Thank you. Your microphone is muted, Patty.
Sorry about that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my thinking around having it added to the agenda is to have some conversation, discussion with the group around questions. So for example, do we have a plan where we would purchase properties that become available from time to time, or identify properties that may be useful and appropriate that we would want to incorporate into the future planning that would be for the good of all citizens. So that could be access to the lake, access to parkways and parks and that sort of thing. And again, perhaps my first question is to Roger. I don't know if you know, there is an inventory, or if there is a list of properties that are attractive that might have a use that the council would feel would be appropriate for, and I call it common citizen use, that everyone should have access to. So perhaps I'll just start by that question and then jump in, guys.
So, to my knowledge, we don't have a list of potential properties that might be great public spaces, but we could very quickly provide a list of vacant properties, for example, that the municipality might own. That would be helpful, but we don't, to my knowledge, and Victoria might be able to correct me on this, but I don't think we have a list of potentially potential public spaces.
Okay, thanks, Roger.
Okay.
We do have a good list of our own MODI-owned inventory properties, but not throughout the municipality that might meet up to some parameters or requirements that would suit the objectives for public or common space. If there were some parameters defined, some characteristics listed out, we might be able to narrow down amongst our own properties what might fit into the categories, but we certainly don't have a good inventory of the municipality as a whole.
So perhaps I can provide one example. So I don't live far from Lake Milo, and I'm just kind of taking up kayaking. So for me to gain access to that lake, I'm not on the lake, I'm not a property owner, I would have to access Lake Milo, which is a great opportunity. And then there is a very small access point near Anthony's Landscaping. But really nothing else around the lake where I'd be able to access, or any other person in the public. And I believe there is a piece of land, or I know there's a piece of land with a for sale sign, right across from the municipal administrative offices and buildings, for example, has lakefront access. So it kind of prompted me to think about, you know, do we ever think about purchasing properties that could be potential uses? And I appreciate there's all kinds of parameters that need to be defined and so on. But are we thinking ahead in terms of that futuristic use of where any citizens would be able to gain access to, for example, Richmond Lake, but there could well be other examples out there that folks think about. And again, you know, we talked about that 10-year review of the municipal bylaw strategy coming up. And, you know, we've talked about how, you know, we need to think about, or strategically think about how things can impact us, and what is happening today may not be relevant 5 years, and kind of what might be. So I thought it was important to have the conversation in terms of, you know, what we're doing now and what possibilities could exist in the future.
My question on that, Patty, would be, I'm unsure if that initiative like that should come from the committee of council, or would that come directly from council? I guess that question would be directed to staff. We always have planning strategies and stuff like that when we were first up. Victoria?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you know, if the Planning Advisor Committee felt that, you know, based on the way development has occurred historically, we don't have green spaces reserved through the development agreements like we plan to do in the future, then the PAC might want to, you know, make a recommendation to council that they look at that. But strategic land buys are not the mandate of the PAC, but the PAC can always make recommendations to council about land uses.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think, Patty's suggestion is a good one that, we have had an issue where people have not been happy in the way a particular piece of land was used, and had it been green space and access to the lake, that would have made the residents in the area much happier. So yes, there's an example of the piece of land across from us, which our building, which hasn't sold. And I think, okay, for that area, wouldn't that be something where, we want to make sure that the development on that property doesn't go against the riparian buffer bylaw and is healthy for the lakes, because we don't know what direction we're going in terms of heat and climate change. So something like that, maybe that's something that council should discuss. And if something is available, then should we consider that, making that space available to our residents for parkland, etc. So again, yeah, I certainly would be in favor of having that discussion at the council level.
So a simple recommendation to council would be in order in that regards then. So if someone wanted to make that a motion, then we can certainly move it forward to council, see if they wish to move forward. That Councillor Lauren Cushing, I see you with your finger up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Patty Simpson mentioned about access to Lake Milo, but there's probably some other access to other lakes around the municipality. I believe, well, on the Milo part of it, we have the Milo Boat Club, of course, where you can launch a boat, and then on just by the Dayton Road by Karen Anthony's place, there's another boat launch there. So we have two accesses to get to the lake in that particular spot, in that particular lakes. I believe we also have some boat launches in other lakes around the municipality. I believe that had been upgraded some to make better access to the lakes for canoers or other type of boat activities. So I'm not sure if Patty knew that or not, but I just thought I'd bring that up. Thank you.
Maybe I could just comment, Mr. Chairman, that under your new subdivision bylaw, you will recall that you now require that a developer reserve 5% of the land being subdivided for public open space, or pay money in lieu of land that would go into a fund to buy future open space. And that's kind of looking down the road. My understanding also is that you're going to be undertaking a review of your municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, probably getting that really launched in the next fiscal year. If you want to do that, then somewhere along this fall, it would be appropriate to start to develop the terms of reference, if you like, for retaining, and I understand you're going the consulting route, that would be normal. That, developing the terms of reference for the review of that plan, and certainly that would be something you could do, you could put this in there. However, there may also be some immediate demand, and while we hear from Patty what some of the demand is, there's probably a lot of other people out there that would like to chime in on this and find out just what the demand is. There's two ways of going that is, to begin to launch an early consultation process on this component alone. But another sort of quick way to do it in proceeding, before you proceed with the overall plan review, would be to launch an online survey, for example, and ask people questions about public open space. And get an input to it that way. So there are a number of ways to go about this that would be very interesting. I think it's an excellent issue, but I point out that you've tried to address this looking down the road into your bylaws. Now, to take a step back, you could wait until your municipal plan review is being undertaken, or you could take some immediate steps with some kind of a survey, if you like, to find out, you know, what is the demand out there and where should you be looking? Because, you know, you may look at a piece of land and say, oh, that would make a nice piece of public open space, but maybe the demand isn't there, or the use of it. And maybe put this into some context as to, I think Greg mentioned this, as to what the demand is. And there are techniques for doing that.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. If I'm not mistaken, our municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws are going to have to be reviewed in the next council term, because they're, believe it or not, they're already getting quite old. It's hard to believe. I remember my first term that we went through that whole process with Brad Fulton at the time, and it was quite a process. But those, it has to be done every 10 years, I think, by law. So we're coming up on that very quickly, and maybe that's something that could be added then. That's just my thoughts on that. So is there any other comments in this regards? Is there any direction of the committee? Councillor Lauren Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I can appreciate the concerns about providing more access to lands that can be used as a common space. But again, I think with the steps that Morris has brought to our attention with the new bylaws and whatnot, that the new developers have to either provide 5% of the land for the common use or pay some money towards it is a good first step, and I think it's a road that we can visit to expand on it down in the near future. Thank you.
Councillor Durkee.
Go ahead, Patty.
Patty, did you want to go ahead?
I was just going to say, it's great to have the different points of view, and thanks all for coming. I think there's probably some longer term initiatives and maybe some shorter term. So I certainly like the concept around an online survey so that we are doing a consultation process. Because again, if the demand is not there, it might make sense in my mind, totally not sense in other people. So I just wonder if there isn't a multiple kind of prone approach that absolutely would have to be entrenched, I believe, within the terms of reference of the committee that's going to be reviewing the land use bylaws. But in preparation for that, is there anything we could be proactively doing?
Any comments?
And I absolutely, you know, the work we've done around the subdivision bylaw, protecting that amount of green space or collecting a fee is certainly a great step in that direction. But I guess I'm thinking about it on a more broad scale.
Yeah.
Well, maybe what we could do, Patty, and this is just an idea being thrown out there, maybe we could recommend to the council that they have an online survey just to see if there is any interest in this, or if there's something possibly we could do in that regard.
I think, you know, it's for us not to assume that we know what people are looking for. So I couldn't agree more that having an online survey is a consultation process, and it will give us information that can be considered when we're doing our thoughtful work down the road.
Yeah, that might be very useful, Mr. Chairman, and in terms of looking at the immediate need, but it also would provide you with some good information as you get into your plan review down the road.
See you, Victoria.
And we
Victoria?
know, yeah.
I think Councillor Durkee was next, and then I'll go after her.
Okay, my apologies.
Thank you very much. Everyone. I think we're on a great track here in terms of planning for the future, and I really appreciate Morris's idea of putting forth a survey to say, you know, what do people want? So I'd certainly be prepared to make that motion that we forward. Let's see, how do we want to put this? We forward this forward. That's not coming out right. This idea, to survey. I guess we'd have to bring this to council first, and then get their opinion on whether or not we should move forward with a survey based on the. Oh man, I can't talk today. Somebody help me with this motion. A motion to bring this forth to council to discuss the possibility of a survey for land use.
Correct.
So you're making that as a motion, Councillor Durkee?
I am.
All right, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gerard. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam CAO?
If I could, with the permission of the mover and seconder, land use is a very broad term. Could I recommend that the language be amended to explore possible land purchases for public access?
Lovely, thank you.
So that's been obviously approved by the mover, and I've seen the seconder with a thumbs up. So can we have a repeat of the exact motion, please? So we know exactly what we're voting on.
Jenny, are you good to repeat that?
I think I have it here. A motion to bring this forward to council to have an online survey to explore possible properties.
Purchase of properties for public access.
Yes.
Okay. Want me to read that again?
Yes, please.
Motion to bring this forward to council and have an online survey to explore purchase of properties for public access.
Right, so that's the move. That's the motion you wanted, Councillor Durkee, and along with Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. Is that the seconder? Yep. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. All right, Jenny, I'm assuming you're going to forward that to council. Our next council meeting is going to be the 27th, I believe, without a calendar right in front of me. I think that's the date. Not tomorrow, but next week.
Yes, correct.
All right, date of next meeting. Now I'm going to have to get a calendar in front of me. Date of next meeting would be normally scheduled for the third week, or the third Tuesday in August, which would be the 18th of August at 7 p.m. If we have any agenda items, we'll certainly be calling the meeting then. So,
Chairman, before you ask for an adjournment, with respect to the amendment to the municipal planning strategy to accommodate the CDDI bylaw, are we recommending, I'm just thinking of process and advertising and council, are we recommending that right on to council now? Is everybody comfortable with that? That's going to go to council now for first reading? Is that really what we meant to do?
that was my intention.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, so that's two recommendations then for council at tonight's meeting.
Good, to make my PAC report a little bit easier rather than writing it out. We'll have a couple recommendations from the PAC and move forward, because I've written up 3, 4, 5 other reports for different committees. So it's a little bit easier for me that way. Thank you very much, everyone. Any other items? Hearing none.
Is there a council Is our council meeting on the 29th? Is it not? Wednesday?
Sorry, yes, it is the 29th. I misspoke. I did say the 27th.
No, council's on the 27th.
That's a Monday.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. Because I approved that we moved that there because of scheduling and I can't remember exactly what it was for, but I had made the recommendation to the CAO that we move it to that date to accommodate for, what the heck was it?
Ordinarily tonight, ordinarily council would have been this week, but we've moved it to the 27th to accommodate the process for your alternate voting bylaw.
Right.
Yes, that was it. We needed to get that in place. That's the reason why I approved that we move it to the 27th for the timelines and
Okay.
all right. So having no new business, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
All right, moved by Lauren Christian, seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone.